All right, so we are looking at the Unit 7, Solve Quadratics by taking the square root mini quiz. Our learning target for this mini quiz is that we can solve and find zeros to quadratic equations by taking square roots. So let's take a look at number 1. We have n squared minus 8 equals 17. So remember, we're always using our order of operations in reverse to solve for our unknown variable. So we will add 8 to each side. Here we get 25. Negative 8 plus 8 is 0. So we have n squared equals 25. We take the square root of each side to get n equals plus or minus 5. Okay. When you take your real quiz, you would put in n equals 5 and n equals negative 5. And that's a manual check. So don't worry if it gets marked wrong. I will go in and manually check that. Number 2, so we have y equals, so this, we have 2 variables here. We have x and y. So we want to find the zeros. Remember, the zeros are where our quadratic crosses the x-axis. So if we're on the x-axis, then our y value is 0. So what we want to do is we want to set that y value equal to 0. So we'll say 0 equals, and this pen is dying too, hold on. Hopefully this one's better. 0 equals the quantity x minus 5 squared minus 4. Okay, then we'll add 4 to each side to get 4 equals the quantity x minus 5 squared. So then we want to work to get rid of the parentheses, or excuse me, the exponent. So we'll take the square root, and whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So this gives me x minus 5, because the square root of the quantity x minus 5 squared is just x minus 5. And then the square root of 4 is plus or minus 2. Okay, so then we have 2 different possibilities, either x minus 5 equals 2 or x minus 5 equals negative 2. So we'll branch that off into the 2 different equations. Okay, so either x minus 5 equals negative 2 or x minus 5 equals positive 2. Add 5 to each side. I'm going to do both equations simultaneously. So here we can have x equals 3 and x equals 7, and those are our answers. X equals 3 and x equals 7. I'm going to write that over here just so it's a little neater. And then again, on your real quiz, it's a manual check because some kids put like the word and in between, some kids don't. So if it gets marked wrong, don't worry, it's a manual check. Number 3, we just have one variable, so it's a simple square root problem. We subtract 8 from each side. We have n squared equals negative 4. So then when we try to take the square root of the left side, no problem. The square root of n squared is n. The golden rule of algebra is whatever I do to one side of the equal sign, I have to do to the other. Okay, I can't take the square root of a negative. Okay, so because there is no number that I can take and square and end up with a negative 4. A positive number squared is a positive number. A negative number squared is a negative number. 0 squared is 0. So there's no number that I can take the square. I can't take the square root of a negative because there isn't a number that I can square and get a negative answer. Okay, so our answer is no real solutions. Okay, and just to reiterate, we cannot have a real solution because remember, a negative times a negative is a positive, and a positive times a positive is a positive. So, and then 0 times 0 is 0. So there's nothing that I can take, and there's no number that exists that I can square and get a negative answer. Okay, so no real solutions. Number 4, okay, g of x equals x squared minus 11. So again, g of x functions like our y, so we would say 0 equals x squared minus 11 And then we will add 11 to each side. This gives us 11 equals x squared. And then we take the square root of each side. Square root of x squared is x. 11, square root of 11, we're just going to leave that as plus or minus root 11. If you wanted to get a decimal approximation, sometimes your directions might ask you to round to the nearest tenths or thousandths or 10,000ths, or excuse me, tenths, hundreds, or thousandths. So if we wanted to get a decimal approximation, we would do square root of 11. Okay, oh, I have mine in math type mode, so I'm going to just press mode to get my decimal approximation. I'm going to take it out of math print mode and put it in classic. Oops. It's solar powered and it's not very bright in here, so that's fun. Okay, let's try this one. I just turned on the light as well. So square root of 11, this one's already in classic mode, so 3.317 approximately. So x would be equal to approximately 3.317 plus or minus. Just make that a little neater. Okay, so x is approximately equal to plus or minus 3.317. Okay, number 5, and just going to zoom in a little on there because I have some writing crowding it. I'm going to rewrite this equation. It's 3n squared minus 8 equals 40, and we will use our order of operations in reverse. So we will add 8 to each side. This will give us 3n squared equals 48. Then we will divide each side by 3. This will give us n squared equals 16. And then we will take the square root of each side, which will give us n is equal to plus or minus 4. Okay, then number 6, we have f of x equals negative 2x squared plus 32. So we'll set that equal to 0. So the f of x is set to 0 equals negative 2x squared plus 32. We subtracted the 32 from each side to get negative 32 equals negative 2x squared. Then we divide each side by negative 2 to get 16 equals x squared. Then we take the square root of each side to get x equals plus or minus 4. Okay, so that's the mini quiz on solving quadratics by taking the square root.